Hello and welcome to Scott's Garage. This is part 2 of the mountain bike e-bike conversion build. In the first episode, part 1, we talked about my old e-bike and this new mountain bike a little bit. We did an unboxing of what the Bafang kit looks like and the battery. And then we did a little bit of disassembly of some things that we're not going to need for this build. We're taking off the cranks and the front sprocket, and then the bottom bracket bearings and things like that. So we're not going to need that. But there are a few other things that we need to remove that we won't need once we put the kit in place. So let's see that now. We can remove the left side handle grip. I don't think we need to remove anything on this side because we're going to put the controller here and then the little start stop thing over on this side. We'll keep the bell. This is the rear gear changer. Okay, we can take off this front shift changer, and we can remove the front brake cable temporarily and the old bike computer. We won't need this. We can remove the front derailleur. Not going to need any of that. Looks pretty clean, huh? We can put all this aside for, I don't know, some other build. Okay, a few things I'm going to do here. I'm going to put this clamp back where it was. And the reason that I did that is because the battery is not going to go here. If you look up in the corner, you can see a picture of me trying the battery here, which doesn't fit. Then I can also put back my water bottle holder, which is kind of nice to have a water bottle holder. And the reason I can put that here is because there's no battery that will fit in this small, weird little area here. I looked for all kinds of batteries. Anyone that's, of any size is not going to fit in here. I even made a template. If you look at, there was one that had a kind of a nice carrying case inside it, and I made a template out of cardboard, and you can see the photo of that up there in the corner. That doesn't fit. And let's see. Also, let's see the battery that we're going to use overlaid here, which doesn't fit. I contacted the manufacturer and asked if they had any smaller batteries. No. If they had any suggestions. One of the suggestions was to put the battery underneath here, and you can see a photo of me trying that. I taped it. I just turned the bike upside down, taped it here with the motor in place, and then I compressed the forks with some ties, some ratchet straps, and it hit the battery. There's no way to put it underneath. So really the only place to put the battery is up here. And so I think I have a plan in place to do that. All right, so we've got the water bottle in place. It's nice to actually have a water bottle holder. And I tidied up these cables with the stays, and it looks like they're going to be fine. So I think the next thing to do would be to attach the hub motor here. And I can't figure out whether I should have that in this position or upside down. Let me think about that a bit. So the hub motor, you just remove everything onto the bottom bracket. There's no washers, there's no bearings, there's no everything. And everything is contained within this hub motor. This kind of stays fixed, and then the bearings are all inside of there with some type of this is going to be attached to the sprocket, and then there's some type of gear mechanism that turns it in there. So basically, you just kind of put this on here like this and tuck these wires underneath, and there's sort of a channel on each side under here that each one of those wires can run into, and I've tightened it up to make sure that it's not going to be pinching either of those cables, which is fine, because you have your rear brake cable and your rear derailleur cable. Those are the two cables that we have there. And then let me show you the front, how the front attaches. All right, so what I kind of want to do is crank this motor as far forward as possible. I don't want it back here dealing with the suspension and the bike. I want it kind of forward, and I'm just tucking in my cables, because there's a little channel that goes through each side, and then this is my stay. There's some bumps on this side, so this goes against my bottom bracket, and I'm going to put a big screw there. I wish that would stay in place. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of blue thread locker on here. This is curved, so that looks like the outside. This would be the inside, so I'm just going to put some thread locker on here. This is a 73 millimeter bottom bracket, so they let me know in the kit that it doesn't really fit this kit exactly. There's going to be some modifications that we're going to have to do, and I'll show you that in a minute. Normally, the other people that have had the kit, they screw this part on, and then there's another nut that goes on there. Because my bottom bracket is bigger, the other nut won't fit. That's about as far as we can get the whole thing on. So you just kind of go with this nut only and put some Loctite on it. That was the manufacturer's suggestion. Okay, so let's wipe off some excess of this. Push this forward all the way. I really could probably tilt the bike down a little bit, but you know, I'm lazy. It doesn't really, this wrench doesn't really work on this nut very well. Okay, so that's kind of good. Oh, look, see? So because I have the 73 millimeter bottom bracket, this is the kind of retaining bracket. This is the motor. There's a big gap in here. So we're going to have to figure out some sort of a spacer in there, and before we put any more of the hardware. So if you look at the screw that they gave me, that's not long enough. So I guess I could maybe take this, well, this lock washer doesn't come off, but I could probably find a longer one. I may have it in my stuff. So let me look for that stuff and see what I come up with. So my solution is to use a couple of brass nuts, and these should clear. And I found some nice bolts that are long enough, and a lock washer and a washer. And if I just put this in here, I made sure to loosen this up a little bit and held it in place with a very secure piece of my finest tape. Because everything needs to be happy a little bit. So we'll just tighten these down and this nut down, making sure that this is in place and my cables are routed nicely. So we'll go ahead and put on the sprocket. Make sure we're getting it on the right side. And then the next thing we'll do is put on this little cover. You put it on and you attach it with these little screws from the back side, but you guys get the idea. And then after that's all on, we'll put on this crank arm with the bolt, and then reattach the chain. Okay, so I'm going to do a live fire test of the bike. I have the battery just sitting here, hooked up, and I have the throttle and the display is on. So if we do this, it works. Hit the brake, and if we pedal, it starts going. When you pedal, it hits the throttle, and you can also do this, hit the throttle. And you have a cool display here. I haven't figured out how to work the light yet, but there's a little indicator for a light there. I guess it's touchscreen, huh? Oh well. I'm gonna read the instructions. But anyway, got the cranks on, got the pedals on, got the chain on, the sprocket cover, and I looped all of the wires up through that cavity there because they're gonna have to come up here. This is like a cool area that I could maybe use as a junction because the battery's gonna be here, and I could use this area maybe like as a junction area. Then I found this neat little tail light here, which is pretty cool. So I got to thinking, I'm not real happy with the throttle on the left and the bell on the right. My other e-bike has the bell, I don't know whether you can see that underneath here, on the left, and the throttle is on the right. And I'm kind of like used to, I think normally, just any kind of motorcycle or whatever always has the throttle on the right. So I think this left hand thing, I'm not sure. It seems to work okay, although it does drag right in here. When I push on this, you can see it's like rubbing there. So I was gonna maybe touch that with a grinder because it actually doesn't release all the way, which is bad. But rather than do that, I think I'm gonna try this on the other side and see how that works. So I was worried that this throttle might not work in this area because this area is so busy with the brake and the rear gear shifters. But if I put the grip on there, that seems like it's gonna work perfectly. Almost like it was made for it. It doesn't even hit in here like with the other side does. So I think I'm gonna go with that. I like that a lot better, and then I'll put the bell over here. So it kind of matches the same on my Trek e-bike. So I'm happy. All right, so I like that. We have grip, brake, rear shifter, throttle. Seems to fit there like a glove. I have my grip, brake, bell, controller, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this light here. I went ahead and changed out this nut for a nylock nut. So what I can do is I can tilt this up and down and it's not going to loosen up on me. And it seems like right there is going to be a pretty nice place for this to go. So let me try to hook this up and see, of course, using the finest zip ties that money can buy. And that one's not big enough. Okay. So if one zip tie is not big enough, then use two. That's what I've learned. We'll just daisy chain them together till we find, and make sure when you daisy chain them that you have the correct way. And then now you have two ways of tightening up your zip ties. So it's like a double benefit. So I have this one, and I think what I'm going to do is loop one through here back to this zip tie back here. And loop that around, and then I don't think that's going to go anywhere. We're still rolling? Good thing we're still rolling. And that will be what we want to do. Whoops, 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 whoops. Astro, be quiet. So the bracket is, wow, that's really on there. And then I should be able to turn this pretty good. Nice. And it should stay where I want. So I can point it kind of down at the trail or straight ahead. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is put on the speed sensor. It's mounted to the swing arm. And I don't want to put it on the other side because I have that wrap that goes around there. Plus, I want to put my shift sensor over there. So, okay, so I peeled off the little double stick tape backing. I think I'm going to put it right here. think I'm gonna tape it right about here. Okay, so for some reason, they decided that it needed this Torx with the hole in it. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and lock her down. I'll tighten this screw, put a couple of zip ties on there, and then I'll hook up the cable and we can see if it works. Or maybe the speed sensor here with the magnet. Well, let's see if the speed works. Hit the throttle. Hey, look at that. The speed sensor is working. And put on the brake. And 0. Nice. So from what they tell me is if I hold down the plus, it's supposed to engage the headlight. All right, so I have a light. I have the little indicator on here. What happened is that I hooked these up backwards. It didn't really have like a positive and a negative, but I guess the one with the stripe should be the red and the one with the solid black should be the black, which makes sense. And I had it opposite. As soon as I hooked it up correctly, it worked just fine. So, headlight, check. Okay, so it's not ideal, but the brake sensors, I think they have to kind of go like this. And if I was to put a zip tie on that to hold the cable, and then there's a little bit of sticky to hold it on, and then the little washer, the magnet, I guess you call it, would go right there. So let's try that and see if this looks like it might even work. But there's really nowhere else that this can go. I don't, unless I'm missing something. I think that's the only place it can go. Why isn't this cooperating? I need like tweezers or something. Man, it really doesn't want to come off of there, this backing. Oh, wow. That is quite powerful. Magnets and glue. All right. So then maybe this is easier to get off. This maybe not. Trying to peel this backing off. Having the same problem. Doesn't really want to come off. Geez, 3M. You're not making my life any easier. Because it wants to pull the whole thing off. So then, like right here, boy, this is sure not ideal. Look at the big gap in there. You see the big gap, but I don't know how else to do it. That seems like it will work, right? And if I put a zip tie right here, just to kind of hold it from getting pulled, I think that's probably about the best I can do with these. So let me do that, and then I'll do it with the other side as well. So now I'm working on installing the shift sensor. One of the ideas I had was to put it here, but this would kind of stick out, and I think it would catch on every bush. So I think I'm going to go back to maybe putting it here. But when I took this off, I discovered that my cable is like broken here and frayed, and I think needs to be replaced. So let's see if I can fix that. Okay, so next step in part 3, we are going to try to mount that battery on that top tube there. Wish me luck.